Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the show. I tell you what, these conversations, they're the highlight of my every single week. Today, we are joined by one of the most respected leaders, in my opinion, in the Sooner State. First interview from somebody from the Sooner State. So please welcome Dr. Rick Cobb, Superintendent of Middale Public Schools. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thanks for having me on, Joe.
Yeah, see, I see you making some really impressive tracks across Oklahoma, and we've had a chance to connect through some other professional development over the past few years. You're leading a district that serves about 14,000 students,
Yeah, and
right?
it's gone down about a couple of thousand since the pandemic, but we are Middale Public Schools surrounds Tinker Air Force Base, and so we have a lot of military students, a lot of mobility. We're on on the east side of Oklahoma City. In fact, the western third of our district includes a lot of Oklahoma City proper, so that kind of gives you an idea of where we are geographically in Oklahoma.
Yeah, yeah. Three mascots that you have to be careful. You know
That's right.
where you're at which time, which sweatshirt you're wearing.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm wearing one of them today, but that's why I have the camera angled right above the logo.
And I bet you survived more of your share of weather drills out in Oklahoma. You guys have had just some crazy weather stuff. Not that the whole world isn't dealing with weather stuff, but Oklahoma, you've always got those tornadoes and things coming through.
Yeah, and we've had wildfires to deal with lately. Usually, that's an issue that Western Oklahoma has, but having them in Central Oklahoma, it was a little terrifying a few weeks ago. Just and I know again that's not a unique to Oklahoma issue, but it's something that I'm a lot less familiar with, and I've been through in tornadoes before, and those are horrifying, and the trauma from that never goes away. But at least I understand what to do in a tornado.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a leader that I would just get on your flank and just run through whatever exit you're going through because you're credible, you're stable, and you've got a lot on your plate right now. My guess is, I mean, every superintendent has got a lot on their plate, but what is it like to be you right now, Rick, as superintendent of Middle?
Well, this is my 10th year, and with that with that experience just comes a little bit of credibility. I can say something that I couldn't say, or I could have said it in my first year, and I wouldn't necessarily have had the response. Knowing, and that's locally, and then that's around the state as well.
Right.
As
And
a
I would
person,
say nationally. I've been following you, and you're part of a number of national movements as well. So take some credit there, boss.
yeah, you're right. Um, but I think in 2020 we all became first year superintendents again, and you and I, we've known each other since before that, and I feel like everything that we talked about when we were going through that cohort, you know, some of it still applies, but I think all of us had a starting over moment in 2020. And so now this is my second time to be a fifth year superintendent is one way to say it too.
Oh my goodness. Did you hear that, folks?
You know,
That is a
um,
wonderful way of just giving perspective to the work.
and we've had bumps along the way that were terrible, and um, this has been one of the best years I've had in the 10 years that I've been superintendent. We passed a $492 million bond in October of 23. So all over the district right now, you're seeing construction startups. People are getting irritated that we're having to change the traffic patterns around schools, but they also know that that's what they voted for, and
So
so
four
you know
492,000,000, that's like new buildings, probably across most of your district.
So we're replacing one elementary school. That's the most expensive project, and everything else is either add-on or reno. Um, we have money built into the bond for textbooks, technology, transportation, more for technology than we did on our previous bond because we're just spending more and more on devices and different software products, and then the cost of everything is going up too.
Let's just talk briefly. I know you're coming back, probably first day back from a wild and crazy tech conference. Tell us a little bit about where you were at and maybe how you're the insights that you pulled from that and bringing home.
Well, I was at I can say the name of the conference. Is that all right? All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was at ASU GSV in San Diego, and it's one of my favorite cities. Um, but the conference itself is a little overwhelming. It is just AI on AI practically. But I was with a group of superintendents that actually got to do a little bit of one-on-one coaching with some startups, some CEOs of startups, and having them pitch what they're working on. And some of them are ready to pilot, ready to sell, and some of them are still developing their product. And so they're getting feedback from superintendents. I like hearing what they're working on and thinking about how that would apply to us. You can't solve all your math problems with with one ed tech solution, but if it's done right, you can make a lot of gains, and if
So
it's implemented
you didn't come back to the office and call a math department meeting and say, "We've got a
right.
new way that
No.
we're going to go about learning"? You
No. My people here, they sometimes get this shrug when I come back from conferences. "Ah, Rick went to another conference. Now he wants us
everybody duck and
n
cover. Yeah,
now
he's
we
coming
have a
back.
million Zooms with vendors." This one's not like that. There might be a couple of meetings that I wanna take afterwards, but I like it's the only conference that I've ever been to where I get to sit down with, people who are still developing their product, and I find that to be a little fascinating. It gives me ideas for how we can better implement some of the products that we are buying, and then also just anytime you get a chance to build relationships with leaders from other states, I think that's valuable too because uh, I know a lot of great leaders in Oklahoma, but I feel like every time I meet people from other states, that I just get a little bit smarter too.
Definitely, definitely. I love that, Rick, and how you talk about you go to a just a high power tech conference, but that's not necessarily your horizon. I mean, your horizon is your mission. It's the vision that you're about right
Mhm.
now. It's the progress that you're making. It's your goals and your objectives, your values, all of that stuff. It's like a big name quarterback that always has in the horizon how they're going to win the game, but the horizon isn't. I can't wait to run the trick play, right?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And no, I mean, if you can change your offense, you can change your defense if you want to stick with the sports analogy there. But ultimately, it's doing something consistently throughout the school year that makes gains. We've refocused over the last really 7 years on PLCs. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we've used some of our school improvement money that we've gotten to bring in coaches that are working with our schools to make sure that really the PLC is not just a meeting, that it's a culture.
Right.
We are a learning community. The noun in PLC this is community, and it's not professional learning meeting; it's professional learning community, and trying to develop that as the culture in the school. And I think that we have a few buildings that are nailing it, and we have others that are really making progress.
So once a social studies teacher, probably always a social studies teacher.
Oh, I was English.
English,
Yeah,
social,
yeah.
okay. Well, you came from the classroom,
Mhm.
which, I think just forges the importance of having that foundational, never forgetting what it's like to be still a teacher and creating those unfortunately, a lot of districts do the PLCs, they do them onto, not with.
Right.
You have to do PL. No, you've created a value or enrichment based opportunity to draw lateral connections with your people, as
Mhm.
any teacher would want to have. So you've been forged quite a bit. Your leadership journey from teacher to superintendent. What are some of the key moments that really shaped your leadership philosophy? Because what I see before me, it's resolute, it's confident, it's secure.
Well, when I'm looking at anything, there are things that we do now, um, in the classroom that I would love to be in the classroom and get to do them, and there are things that we do now that I would absolutely hate. I went into administration in 2002. We didn't have high stakes testing. We were just piloting high school end of instruction tests, and here's literally how much I knew about it. The counselor comes in and says, "Hey, we're doing testing today," and I said, "Really? Testing over what?" And she said, "English 2." And I said, "Oh, I teach English too." And that's how prepared I was to give my kids this test. Um, and then my kids did really well, and the principal wanted to know why, and I said, "Because I have the honors classes." And he said, "Well, your regular students did better too." And I said, "Oh, well, don't tell anyone, but I teach them like they're honor students."
Mm,
And, yeah, if my regular students had known that they were getting a lot of the same stuff that my honors kids were getting, I just believe in raising the game.
yeah.
And if and I believe that learning is driven by individual goals. If you come into my class and say, "I'm gonna make an A in this class," which means I'm gonna get a 90. Well, you can get a 90 doing really easy stuff, or you can get a 90 doing really challenging stuff. And if you determine you're gonna be an A student, I'm gonna challenge you. Not challenge you so that I can break you or anything, but I'm going to give you um, the best stuff that I can throw because I want you to learn things that matter.
Yeah, it's gotta
So
be challenging in order to create engagement. I mean, the
mhm,
engagement research out there, it has to be meaningful,
mhm,
right? It appeal to my heart, but
right.
it also has to stretch me a little bit. So if it's just meaningful,
Mhm.
but not stretching me, we all get bored.
Oh, yeah.
We all get complacent.
So then I went to be a principal in a rural school for a couple of years, and after that, I just met a guy at a conference, and he worked for the state regents doing some work, some college to high school bridge stuff around the state, and he was leaving my office, and I said, "Hey, if you ever have a job come open, that you think I'd be good at, send it to me." Well, he wasn't the hiring guy, but he sent me a job a couple of weeks later, and I applied, and I got it. That guy is still my best friend. Just somebody those ride or die people you have in your life, and I got to
Absolutely.
work in a cubicle with him for 4 years and drive around the state, all over the state, just talking about work, talking about things that aren't work, just having hopefully making an impact in schools. But one of the things I got to do separate from him in that job is I got to do a lot of collaboration with SREB out of Atlanta on developing leaders. And one of their training modules that I worked on a revision of it. And I forget the exact title of it, but it had something to do with, knowing that your students had learned. And so before I had ever heard of PLCs,
Right.
um, I was doing work with SREB and bringing that training back to the schools I was working with in Oklahoma and asking them, "How do you know your students have learned?" And here's a hint: it's not the grades they've made. That just usually tells us how compliant they are, and it's not their ACT, and it's not their state test. How do you really know your students have learned day to day to day?
Do you have the answer to that? Because I think we're all leaning in right now.
Well, I think that that's what I mean. I think that whether you do PLCs or something else, you have to have a culture where you're asking that question, and where the answer to that question um, informs the work that you are continuing to do. And
Mm,
so that's why when we go through the PLC model, and the first question is, you know, how do you know that your students have learned?
right. And
And
then what do you do?
and so it took something that I was doing with SREB back in '04, '05, and connecting it with what I ended up doing later. In 2008, I became a curriculum director and more, and I did that for 7 years before coming here. And 2008, when I got to Moore, was the first time I'd ever been to a PLC conference. And so it was the
Mm,
first time I'd really seen that framework and listened to Rick DeFore and all the other great leaders that were there at that time. And and it just a lot of things clicked in me that this is what we should be doing. This is how we should be, improving instruction. Whatever whatever offense you're running, going back to that first analogy,
right, right.
whatever offense you're running, just make sure you run it really, really well. But everybody on the team has to understand the offense. The quarterback has to know where the receivers are going to be downfield. And if the receiver sees something in the defensive alignment and changes the route, the quarterback needs to be able to predict that.
Or
You
call
know,
an audible, or the defense changes. We've got to be, we've got to
yeah.
be viable and both,
Mhm.
understanding how to be flexible in the game as well.
I coached volleyball back in the '90s, and my players, they just knew. we would see the same teams over and over again, and we knew their weaknesses, they knew ours, and so it's all about making adjustments to that. But my setter knew what the other 5 players on the court were supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and they knew what she was supposed to be doing. When we were when things were going well, that was true. That was not always true, but when things were going well, the year that we made it to state, I think it's because everybody in the court knew all 6 positions, even if you weren't playing all 6 positions. You
There's
knew,
credibility right there.
and
Yeah.
so and so whether it's sports or any other kind of organization, you have to know what what's going on around you. It's that situational awareness that helps you, kind of, get better at instruction, get better at diagnosing problems and finding the right solution for them.
Let's focus on one more thing, and I wish we had more time, but we're going to bring this into a close. So, pedagogy is one thing, but andragogy, that adult learning piece, is a whole different piece. And I love the fact, Rick. I mean, you are a learning leader. You're not a superintendent that is just running a system. You're doing people development. You're doing, all of the best practices of instructional best practice, or probably even better practices today. I think best practices were blown away, after COVID. We had to figure out new ways of really engaging students. So as you think about just that adult learning, because I think the best learners or best leaders, yes, they are learners, but they're the ones that create the conditions for your adults to be uber successful. So you've got a lot of dust flying right now. You've got a lot of programmatic changes. You probably have a lot of initiatives related to technology. How are you building the conditions for your professional development across Mid-Dell? Because the old days we would say, well, professional development day is on December 13th. It's a new day.
Yeah, we're trying to spread those out throughout the year. I think our calendar for 20 plus years was built around having a day in September that we can go over the test scores, because you test in April and you get scores back in September. Makes complete sense. The ACT and SAT can get your scores back in 3 weeks, and they're testing a lot more students. But that doesn't, all that aside, we would spend this day going over our test scores. Well, now we don't even reliably have them back by then. And also, is that really what we want to focus in on, is our state tests? What I'd rather do is have a conversation about the linkage between the oh the screeners that we're using,
Hmm.
how predictive they are of test scores, the grades that we're giving in class and how predictive they are of test scores, and really just focus on what our best teachers are doing and putting them in a position where they can help other teachers. It's I don't think our faculty, we have about 850 classroom teachers.
Wow.
I don't think that I have more than 5 minutes a year they're going they're going to listen to me talk about what good instruction looks like. I can talk more than that, but I've only got 5 minutes that they're really going to listen to me. But if you have a lot of English teachers together in a room and they're talking about what they're doing that's working, then the other English teachers in that room are going to listen. And I feel like being an instructional leader from this chair means I try to make space for people to do that. We have put a late start Wednesdays into our high schools so that all of our teachers have that collaboration time weekly.
Every
Uh,
single week, you've got a late start.
our middle schools, since so the bond we passed in 2017 was to included a package to merge middle schools. So we went from 5 to 3, so they align directly with our high schools. And we built in when once we did that, we built in that second planning time that goes with the pure middle school model. The problem is that team time. We, it's a great idea, but we did that merge in 2020. Well, that was not the best time for new things.
Right,
And
right.
so it's taken us a while for that to get off the ground, but that's now become our big PLC time for our middle school teachers. And we have PLC time, and again, that's really just the time for our PLCs. Again, it's not a meeting, but the time for those meetings, the time where those teachers are doing the collaboration is PD time, and they're learning from each other. I can bring in a keynote speaker, and it will not have that same level of impact. Now, I think there are times to bring in the keynote speaker, and I brought one in a couple of years ago for a leadership retreat, and I'm not paying him anymore, but he's still reaching out to people on my team. Hey, just checking in. How's this going that you're doing, and all that. And I love people like that. But ultimately, the teachers are going to learn the best from each other if the principal goes to those meetings too.
Boom. That's what it's all about. You've got to have viable and visible leadership that is modeling that way. So your
Mhm.
principals might be even more so instructional leaders than your superintendent there, Dr.
Yeah, I
Cobb.
mean, because I can
They
spend
have
some
to
time
be.
I can spend some time on instruction, but I still have to manage a budget, all of our
Yes.
bond project. I mean, I'm pulled in 1,000 different directions, and so are our principals. But the principal has more impact on instruction than the superintendent does, period.
The
Which is
research
why
is
it was the
so
hardest
very,
job I
very
ever
clear.
had.
Right, exactly. We're going to bring this into a landing, but before we do, get ready for a quick little pep talk here because the
Right.
world of education is changing greatly. I mean,
Mhm.
across the nation, I'm certainly sure you're seeing that across Oklahoma as well, where we've got leaders that are kind of gripped by fear and uncertainty and doubt, and some of them just even wondering, I don't know if I got another round left in me, coach. Right? I just wondering, do I just like put the all the pieces back in the box and go have a better life? So we've got those educators that are leaning in and listening right now, might be feeling quite challenged and needing some perspective. You are one of the most boots on the ground leaders that I have ever met. So, just what wisdom, encouragement, insight would you have to those that are maybe their hair is just a little bit on fire today?
I will say that last year, for reasons I don't wanna get into, was probably the worst year I'd ever had professionally, worse than 2020. Um, this year is one of the best years I've had. So don't give up a good thing because you're going through a hard time. You y They don't always last, and sometimes they do. I mean, sometimes you hit that losing streak and it's time to walk away from the table. But, if I could have retired at the end of last year, I probably would have. If I could have retired in 2020, I probably would have. And now I feel like things are rolling better, and I'm a few years away from retirement still, but when I go, I wanna go out when I'm having a good time, not go out when I'm having a lousy time, not go out when I feel like all I see are these 4 walls around me and no solutions. There are times that things look harder than you can handle, and I do have somebody down the hall who will come in and say, "Hey, Rick, we can do hard things."
So good.
And that you need that person. I have a whole team of people like that around me. I know you said to focus on me, but I'm the one who built this team, and they're pretty dang good.
Well, and that's the secret to your success. I mean, at some point you might go play some more golf or do some bass fishing during the day, but your progress will continue because it's the culture that you have built and now driven through your team. Thank you, Dr. Cobb, for showing us what just a thoughtful, student centered leadership leader looks like today. To our viewers, you got to keep your eyes on Middell. They are definitely just proving that every day you can be the winner of that day. Oklahoma education is better because of you, sir, and really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Well, thanks for having me on, Joe. It's been too
Hey,
long.
let's do it again. It's just been the show, Joe, reminding you that everyone deserves to live in a community served by really healthy individuals like this incredible human being here who are building incredible teams, like Rick had said, that are leading really reliable systems. And that's what it's all about. Hey, before we wrap up, if you have found any value in today's conversation, go ahead and do what those kids do. They push the like buttons and they send it off to friends and they put comments just do what the kids do. Do what the kids do. Until next time, peace.